So I was conducting an in-depth analysis on the YouTube algorithm, by which I mean I was just watching videos, when I noticed a very interesting pattern. Every time I see one of these Johnny Depp Amber Heard videos, it has like a million views. So I thought I'd conduct another in-depth analysis, and I know what you're thinking, Connor, I don't think you know what analysis means. But just hear me out, okay? I'm going to analyze it by watching it, that's right. And then as soon as I click on it, I realize, oh, wow, this video is way too long and there's no way I'm watching this. So today I'm just going to talk about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard as people. And at the end of the video, I'll give my theory on what I think the outcome of this whole situation will be. But we'll read their Wikipedia articles and we'll try and learn about their lives growing up. And we'll talk about the trial a little bit, but mostly I want to focus on who they are as people. Number one, because I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not even really interested in the legal details. There are plenty of lawyers on YouTube who are talking about it from that perspective. I'm way more interested in the psychology and again, who they are as people. Number two, and this is the main reason, this is because I can relate to both parties. And I'm going to have to open up a little bit, and it's going to get pretty personal, actually. So I'm not really looking forward to that, to be honest. But number three is, I'm a huge fan of Johnny Depp. I mean, come on. Pirates of the Caribbean came out in 2003 when I was 9 years old. I have so many positive memories of watching those with my family and friends. I quite literally grew up on those movies, and I think a lot of us did. So maybe that makes me a little biased, but I'm okay with that. So we'll start with Johnny Depp. John Christopher Depp II was born on June 9th, 1963 in Owensboro, Kentucky. And so Owensboro, Kentucky is the middle of nowhere. It's 2 hours from Louisville, 2 hours from Nashville, 2 hours from St. Louis. And no, I'm not from Kentucky. I've been there, and I only know a couple people from there, but if you've ever been there, you can already picture in your mind like what his childhood was like. The youngest of 4 children of waitress Betty Sue Palmer and civil engineer John Christopher Depp. His family moved frequently during his childhood, eventually settling in Miramar, Florida in 1970. His parents divorced in 1978 when he was 15. He was gifted a guitar by his mother when he was 12 years old and began playing in various bands. He dropped out of high school at age 16 in 1979 to become a rock musician. He attempted to go back to school 2 weeks later, but the principal told him to follow his dream of becoming a musician. In 1980, he joined a band called The Kids, and after modest local success in Florida, the band moved to Los Angeles. Okay, maybe I'm having my own little personal Mandela effect here, but I swear to God, this article used to say his mother was physically and emotionally abusive his entire childhood, and that he started abusing drugs and alcohol in his teens. It doesn't matter, because he's now on the record of saying that in the trial. But it's almost like, as soon as you know he was born in this small town in rural Kentucky in the 60s, and that he grew up in Florida, like he's literally a Florida man, you already know everything you need to know about him. He still struggles with drug abuse, and a lot with alcohol, which is consistent with people who were abused in their early childhood. And from what it sounds like, the abuse was pretty severe. And to me, this all makes perfect sense. He's not an established and, put together actor. He's still just that poor Kentucky kid, with a rough childhood that was raised in chaos, and he wanted to be a rock star, but he just sort of fell into acting and it kind of blew up out of his control. And so I've really emphasized with the guy ever since I read that. My mom was also physically abusive, and both of my parents were most abusive my entire life. And whenever I tell people that, they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. And when I tell them the details, they're like, oh, wow, that is way worse than I imagined. Like, I'm still flinching to this day. It used to be way worse, and I've recovered and healed and moved on from most of those things because I've spent a ton of time in therapy and working on myself. But I've struggled a lot with alcohol, and that's also pretty much in control now. Up until recently, it was a big problem in my life. So I really feel for the guy. And while I've never, ever in my life hit a woman or even come close to that or even, had the urge to, when I first heard that he was being abusive or, the allegations, I'm not gonna lie, I thought to myself, that makes sense. I mean, he's basically had the same childhood as like most serial killers. So when I first heard about this lawsuit, I automatically took Amber's side, and I think a lot of people did. And that brings me to Amber Heard. Before I start, I want to say I had never heard of this woman in my life up until the divorce. I didn't even know she was an Aquaman until I read her Wikipedia for this video. I had never seen her in anything. I didn't know she was an actor, and that's not to be rude. I'm just saying I didn't have any existing beliefs going into this, unlike with Johnny Depp. So I'm gonna talk about myself first, and then Amber Heard. In my last video, I said that I had anger problems, which is not accurate. I have anger problems. I'm just more in control of them now. I still have the exact same internal response. I still overreact to everything like all day, every day. I just don't base my actions on those reactions. My anger problems used to be pretty severe. I was emotionally abusive to my girlfriend in high school. And it's like the biggest regret of my entire life. Like for a long time, I hated myself for it. And to this day, I still feel guilty for it every single day. And I know people will say, oh, well, that's what my parents, that's what my parents did to me, blah, blah, blah. But the way I see it, it's my responsibility. I'm the one who messed up. And the intense guilt that I feel is extremely motivating to me. Because however hard it is to get in control of anger problems, the guilt and the shame and the self-hatred of realizing how much you've hurt someone you love, it is so much more painful. It is so much worse. And so even though it's been extremely difficult for me to get in control of myself, it's been 1,000,000,000% worth it. Because anger problems, they're for life. They're like herpes. They don't just go away. Unlike the IRS, which if you ignore them for long enough, they'll just go away. And that's why I never pay taxes. And so, by the way, part of the reason I'm sharing this is just to hold myself accountable and to not try and pretend that never happened or to, accidentally mislead people into thinking I'm someone I'm not. Because I know I'm a good person now, and part of that means being honest about all of me. But the main reason I'm sharing this is because having gone through this lifelong process, I can always spot an abuser, like instantly. And the second I saw Amber Heard's face in the thumbnails of these videos, I knew it. I was like, holy shit. She's been the abusive one this whole time, and that's why he's suing her for defamation. Heard was born in Austin, Texas, to Patricia Page, an internet researcher, and David Clinton Heard. She has a younger sister, Whitney. The family lived outside Austin. Heard's father broke horses in his free time, and she grew up riding horses, hunting, and fishing with him. She also participated in beauty pageants, although as an adult she said that she can no longer support the objectification. Heard was raised Catholic but began identifying as an atheist at 16 after her best friend died in a car crash. The following year, she no longer felt comfortable in, quote, conservative, God-fearing Texas and dropped out of her Catholic high school to pursue an acting career in LA. She eventually earned a diploma through a home study course. And I read all four of these sources, these articles, and there isn't any other information about her childhood, but this seems pretty standard, right? Nothing really sticks out to me, at least. But there is some insight into who she is in this article. This was my first sign that something wasn't adding up. Because this article, if you care about this case and you're interested in psychology and people, I highly recommend you read this article because it's a fascinating insight into what it's like to interact with a manipulative, narcissistic type person. Amber Heard is so clearly love bombing this reporter, and she is just eating it up and 100% completely falling for it. Like to the point where I looked up who this reporter is, and it turns out that since then she's become this like Amber Heard super fan and actually got kicked out of the courtroom of this current trial because she was sitting with the lawyers and live tweeting the trial. Anyways, in this article, Amber Heard is going on and on about how amazing she is and is clearly suffering from delusions of grandeur, a staple symptom of narcissism and cluster B personality disorders. And you can just feel that while she's talking, she's so proud of everything she's saying. You can literally feel it just by reading the article. She is so obsessed with herself. And I feel like the word narcissist is overused these days and that it erodes its like severity. I feel like when people think of a narcissist, they just think of like a really selfish person. But that's not what it is. It is one of the most extreme personality disorders. Narcissists, in my opinion, they aren't human. They're something else. They don't just not feel bad for other people. They're incapable of seeing other people as human beings. When they hurt someone or they use someone, it feels like if you or I, if we were to like use a fork or just open the car door, we don't even notice that. We don't even register it's happening. Narcissists don't just think they're better than everyone. They think that they're like above human. They think they're gods. They're obsessed with themselves. It's all they think about all day, every day. And I'm actually really proud of myself here, and I'll explain it. It'll make sense. But I wrote the notes for this video over the weekend, and today it's Tuesday, April 26th, 2022. It's 5:30 p.m., so 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. And so I was going to say, I don't actually think that Amber Heard is a narcissist, even though a lot of people have been throwing that word around. I don't think so. And so I was going to say, in my opinion, she's almost definitely in that cluster B group of personality disorders, which includes narcissism, but she could also be borderline or histrionic. And it turns out that this morning in the trial, they had a psychologist give a testimony, and she diagnosed Amber Heard with histrionic personality disorder. So I was 100% right. With histrionic personality disorder, that underlying drive is to always be the center of attention. Exactly. So I'm not an expert, but I can always tell these people, always. And one thing about abusers and manipulators and people with these personality disorders is they almost always expose themselves. Sooner or later, the world finds out who they are. All their lies and deceit catches up with them, and most of the time, they're held accountable for their actions. Sometimes to me, it doesn't seem like that, and maybe not to you either, but we need to remember that most narcissists are just in prison. These are extremely toxic people. So even if they are in prison, like, their lives are usually pretty shitty. And so I think what's happening here is justice. The world is learning who Amber Heard really is, which is an abusive, manipulative, disordered person. And regardless of the outcome of the trial, in the court of public opinion, the case is already over. Johnny Depp might have a pretty bad drinking problem and said some crazy shit when he was blacked out, but in this situation, he is the victim. We gravitate towards what we're comfortable with, and we're comfortable with what we're used to. He grew up being abused by women, and so it kind of makes sense that he would end up in the same situation as an adult. And I think everyone who's watching this case can see that. At least I hope so, because I don't care what anyone says. My hopes are still sky high that Johnny Depp is going to be in Pirates of the Caribbean 6. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it. Please feel free to let me know what you think in the comments below. And I really appreciate everyone who's been liking and commenting and subscribing. It's so exciting. Thank you. See you next time.